In the news this week here in the state of New York was a story of a young woman who committed suicide, claiming that it was bullying at school that caused her to do this. Very sad and very sad story indeed. When they interviewed the father of the young lady, he made a mention that he believed that what had happened in the school was a criminal offense, and he was calling for prosecutors to take legal action against these young children. And they actually showed a video of the young woman being attacked in the hallway of the school, where she was pushed down, she was being beaten, she was being kicked, she was being bullied by some of her classmates there. Now, I don't pretend to understand the feelings of the young woman that led her to commit suicide. I also don't pretend to understand the feelings of the father, who obviously is going through a very difficult time right now. But I put myself into his shoes, thinking what would happen to me if my daughter were to commit suicide and that, she would claim bullying to be the cause. Obviously, I would be very angry as well. I don't blame the man for his anger, for his call for justice. I would do exactly the same thing. I would hope, however, that eventually, after going through my grief, that I would come to explore the idea of forgiveness. I understand forgiveness to be one of the keys to our freedom and our peace, and I would hope that through the tremendous tragedy that I would eventually come to the place where I would look for forgiveness. And so today we are going to explore an idea that is a very powerful idea indeed, the one of beginning again, begin anew. And this is important for us because I believe it is one of the superpowers that we have as human beings to make a choice in life, whether it's right or wrong. But we have the opportunity at any time to rethink our choices and to begin anew. This is one of the superpowers that we have. It allows us to make adjustments in the perception that we have of people and of the world, of ourselves, etc., etc. And beginning anew really opens the door to forgiveness. It is the beginning of contemplating a new perspective. It also reminds us of our power to establish the truth in our life. It strengthens our spiritual identity. When we choose in favor of what we believe to be our highest truth, it strengthens that identity, and it offers us ultimately freedom and peace. Juan Enrique Toro greeting you on this beautiful day, thanking you for the thumbs up, for the subscriptions that you have, also for those wonderful donations. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And so today I'm going to share a story with you from the Bible that speaks to this begin anew idea. And it's a very interesting story. It comes in Mark 7:24 through 30. And here it says, Jesus went to the district of Tyre, and he entered a house and wanted no one to know about it, but he could not escape notice. Soon, a woman whose daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him. She came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek of Syrophoenician birth, and she begged him to drive the demon out of her daughter. And he said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." And she replied, and she said to him, "Lord, even the dogs under the table eat the children's scraps." Then he said to her, "For saying this, you may go. The demon has gone out of your daughter." And when the woman went home, she found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. This is to be a very interesting story because it shows Jesus in a very difficult situation, doing something that we rarely see in the Bible. Here, the scene is he's in a home, and a Greek woman, obviously not of Jewish descent, comes and begs him for help in driving a demon out of her daughter. She falls at his feet. And Jesus insults her. She's begging for his help, but he insults her, saying, let's give food to the children first. The children of Israel is obviously what he means, because let's not throw food to the dogs. So Jesus is associating this Greek woman with a dog. He's saying basically, you're a dog. And to me, this is a very interesting situation. Not so much what Jesus is doing. Jesus, I believe in this case, is trying to measure the consciousness of this woman, trying to measure who she really is. And the way she answers demonstrates the level of consciousness that she holds. Just take for a moment, obviously she replies in a very non-judgmental, open, we could say loving way, right? That turns the situation around and offers Jesus the possibility of helping her drive out the demon from her daughter. But we take a moment to contemplate what were her options. What could she have done? Or what have I might have done in the similar situation when maybe Jesus would have insulted me, calling me a dog? How about we reply? Well, we might defend ourselves, right? No, that's not right. We could attack Jesus. You know, who do you think you are calling me a dog? We could see ourselves as a victim and kind of cower away. Oh, poor me, that sort of thing. We got to remember that anytime life shows up, that we're making choices as to how to respond. Sometimes those choices aren't clear to us because the response was so immediate, was so clear to us that we responded just basically unconsciously. But when we remember that every choice is something that we are making, we retake this superpower of being able to rethink and reestablish. We choose a response, or maybe a renewed response. So what I believe happened in this situation, like I say, I believe that Jesus was trying to measure the consciousness of this woman. If he had said to her, or if she had responded rather with the idea of, well, you need to, she's going to defend herself, attack Jesus, or see herself as a victim, Jesus would have, who knows what he would have done, but he's seeing how she reacts. In this case, she reacts from the very highest perspective. She is basically demonstrating to Jesus that what he said to her, the insult that he threw to her, really had no power over her. She replies, well, you may see me as a dog, but even the dogs eat the scraps that the children leave behind under the table, which is a very non-judgmental, non-victim, non-attack, very much at the level of, I love my daughter. And what I really want in this situation is your help in healing her. I have faith in your ability to heal my daughter. And that is what's most important to me. So I'm going to choose a response that helps me to realize what it is that I'm doing. Right? So the woman here is demonstrating a very high consciousness. The story here is the way the woman is being able to not see herself as a victim, not really giving in to the power of attack or the insult that Jesus was throwing at her. Because what we choose is what we make real. Right? So this woman was being insulted as a dog, but she chose to not give that any power because she chose love for her daughter and faith in the ability of Jesus to help, to heal. So she was choosing a highest truth in this situation. Now, what about the father? Like I say, it's not about me to judge. If my daughter would have committed suicide, I would be just as angry. But eventually, I believe the father can take stock and maybe adjust his perspective. Not wanting to attack those who attacked his daughter, maybe not be angry at them, but to work in his heart towards forgiveness. And this is what I hope that I would do, right? So I seek to do in my life. Because obviously, I would love my daughter. And eventually I would have to come to accept the fact that she made a choice in her life, that she chose suicide. I'd have to come to accept that because that is what happened. The love of my daughter would never die, but I'd have to come to accept her choice in life. I would also I'd like to come to see that the other children, yes, they acted, they were misled. They committed acts of aggression, no doubt about it, of violence, no doubt about it, right? And nevertheless, I would seek to see the truth of who they are. Maybe they're a little lost or distracted from their true identity as children of God. But eventually I'd have to come to realize that they had made a choice as well. They had chose something, a very weak response to love. Whenever we put power over somebody, we're recognizing our own weakness. Eventually, I would like to come to see them as children of God and have the light within them, be able to honor that and to see that. So what does it mean to begin again? To begin again is a recognition that maybe I'm not seeing this from the best possible perspective. Sometimes we affirm for ourselves, I know what this situation is. I know what's all this about. It's questioning. Do I really know? Do I really know? Do I really understand what's going on here? Might there be a different perspective that I could see here? Could I see this with new eyes? And by the way, am I seeing this from the highest perspective? What choice did I make in my judgment? Did I decide out of weakness or out of strength? Did I decide my response out of fear or out of love? To begin again is to be able to rethink that, to look at it once again, to question and say, maybe I didn't understand that situation from the highest perspectives. Life will continuously give us opportunities to look at our perspective and to make these adjustments. Anytime we have something difficult, painful, show up in our life, we're going to respond to it. We're going to react to it. We have to. But from what perspective are we responding? And the beautiful thing about this superpower of beginning again is that in any time we can stop, we can breathe, and we can ask ourselves, was that the highest response that I could possibly have? Maybe I didn't see this from the highest level that I could. And so, if we really want to establish that which we believe to be true and real in the world, if we want to establish our identity as a spiritual being, if we want to give power to truth and not to fear or weakness, we have to be honest with ourselves and see, was this choice the highest choice we could take? If you walk with a child, a little child, maybe you're going to walk in the street, it's very natural for the child to put their hand in yours. When they're very little, they'll reach up and they'll take your hand, and it'll seem absolutely natural. And when they do that, they are putting trust in you, in your perspective. They're putting security in you, knowing that they're going to be safe, right? And you take on that responsibility as an adult to help them walk safely through the streets. And so what we do when we begin again is we're like those little children. We're going to put trust in a higher consciousness. We could say trust in God. Trust in the higher consciousness that we are. We'd put our hand into that higher consciousness and we said, we trust you and we put security in you. And I may have chosen out of weakness, but I'd like to choose now out of strength. I may have chosen in the past out of fear, but now I'd like to choose out of love. There's a powerful affirmation I'd like to share with you today that might help us make this transition, this shift in consciousness. And that is, I am just as God created me. You know, who we are has not changed over the years. Each one of us is just as God created us. Now, we've been through many experiences in life, some of them good, some of them not so good. But the initial seed of creation that created us has not changed. We are all children of God, created in the image and likeness of love itself, of the highest ideals that we could possibly sustain. And when we remember that, and when we put our hand into that higher consciousness that we are, we can say, you know, I may not be seeing this from the highest perspective. Let me take a step back. Let me take a deep breath. Let me see this with new eyes. Let me begin again. Begin anew. In this way, we're using our superpower to make this perspective something absolutely real for ourselves, fortifying our identity as a spiritual being. Whenever we make that choice, we're saying yes to that identity. Again, we're choosing what is real for us. The woman chose not to give any attention or any power to the insult that Jesus gave her. Now that takes a high consciousness to be able to pull off. What happens when somebody insults you? Well, we may react. Here's the good news. The good news, all right, maybe you did react. Maybe you said some words. Maybe you returned the attack. Maybe you cowered down as a victim. Maybe you defended yourself. All responses of weakness. You can begin anew. You can begin afresh. You can say, I'd like to choose from a perspective of strength, from a perspective of love, from a perspective of a person who knows and understands that I am just as God created me. Put your hand into that higher consciousness and walk trusting that the new choice that you make, the new perspective that you take on, will strengthen your identity as a spiritual being, will fortify the truth of who you are, will make real what is absolutely true in your life, and will take away or deny the power of the negativity, of the weakness, of the fear. Juan Enrique Toro greeting you on this wonderful day, thanking you for tuning in. Thank you for that wonderful thumbs up, for the subscriptions, and for those wonderful donations that help so powerfully. The link to those donations will be in the show notes here today. And I leave you with this thought. Life is consciousness, and consciousness is life.